Carp have not always existed in almost every state in the U.S. The fish is a nuisance to anglers, boaters, and lakefront property owners. This is just one of the many nuisance species that invades our waters today. Wildlife biologist Marty Egeland is here to tell us more about these things. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, glad to be here.
Well, first of all, if we could start out with a definition of an aquatic nuisance species.
You know, an aquatic nuisance species, or a lot of people hear the term ANS, just an acronym for it. It's just any species that are not native or indigenous to this area, and they can be plants, animals, or even viral diseases.
Sure.
If it doesn't belong here, if it come from another continent, that's pretty much an aquatic nuisance species.
Well, why wouldn't we want more species in our waters?
Well, a lot of times they will negatively affect our native wildlife. They can typically compete with them as far as utilizing the same food resources. You have something like carp, for instance, and they're in there and they're eating. Carp will eat just about anything. They'll eat plant material, they'll eat animal material, and they're taking out one level of the food chain, which ultimately there's less food for native species. Sometimes they can spread diseases in certain instances, and typically not with our fish and wildlife. They could, with more of our mammal species, if we want to go that far, they could even potentially interbreed with some of our native species. So typically we haven't had a lot of success stories with things that don't belong here.
Sure. Well, what's the easiest way to prevent them from invading?
Not letting them get here in the first place would have been a great step, but of course we're past that point, and some of the stuff were brought here intentionally. The common carp was not an accident. It was brought over in the mid to late 1800s. People brought it over, and especially in Europe and Asia, carp is a valuable fish. It's sought after. They actually have carp fishing tournaments in Europe.
Okay.
It's not so hot here.
Yeah.
And of course somebody thought it'd be a great idea to have it here, and they were released, and they've invaded most of our river systems in the United States. They're in a lot of lakes. If we'd never brought it over, that would have been the best thing. Once they're here, they're very hard to stop.
Well, and you're talking about river systems. Right now, the Red River of the north here is flooding.
Yep.
So does that introduce invasive species to other waters?
It certainly can, and a lot of these things will move in a water system itself. Whether it's plants or animals, we get something in Red River, it's going to be able to move up and down. But as we see, if flooding gets bad enough where it connects other bodies of water, yeah, that's another avenue for those animals to get across. Most of the movement is still due to human activity,
Sure.
But yeah, if one watershed spills into another one, yeah, we can have movement very easily.
Okay. Well, we have some pictures of some invasive species. The first is a zebra mussel. And how did this start spreading?
This, like a lot of our aquatic nuisance species, came into the Great Lakes originally, and of course the Great Lakes is a big shipping area, and a lot of people probably, I guess, realize or understand how these ships work. When they leave a country, say they're over in Europe and they've offloaded their cargo of grain, that's what goes out of, say, Superior or Duluth area a lot. They're coming back empty. Those ships are designed to be travel with a loaded hull, so they take on ballast water. So they're taking water on in Europe, Asia, somewhere else. They come back to, say, port in Duluth, and they're taking on a load of grain. Well, they don't need that weight, so they dump the water into Lake Superior, and or whatever lake they're offloading at. And that's how zebra mussels got into the Great Lakes.
Well, and those little mussels didn't look that dangerous. Why are they considered a nuisance?
Well, they do a variety of things. Number one, once again, like the carp, they're out there taking they're filtering nutrients out of the water, and they're eating, and that's going to be less food available there. It's taken out one level of our food chain,
okay.
And there's going to be less food available there for our native species, which lie as you go up the food chain. The other thing it does, as far as just a nuisance for cities and stuff, a lot of places, if you get your drinking water out of these lakes, they can populate so much that they'll actually clog up water intake
and
pipes.
we saw a lot of them on that.
Yep.
That other.
We've had instances where they've had up to like 44,000 of them in a square yard, of lake bottom. So they populate very rapidly. They can plug up things, and they're one of those things too. They can hitch rides on boats, trailers, you name it.
Well, that can hitch a ride, but what about the carp? And we got a picture of that fish. It doesn't look like that could quickly hitch a ride with something.
Yeah,
How does that spread?
That's not going to hop onto your trailer and take a ride,
Right.
of course, like a plant fragment. A lot of times people, when they're using bait, they're trapping their own bait, hauling around, dumping your bait bucket out. You know, when people look at little fish, all little fish to a lot of people are minnows. Well, if you start looking in there, you know, we probably do have some fathead minnows, but there could be baby walleyes, baby carp. You know, that's one nice thing about people who sell bait for a living. They're supposed to screen their bait and make sure if you're selling fathead minnows or just fathead minnows. So you can transfer carp that way, or you talked about flooding instances before.
Yeah.
They readily will swim through, you know, shallow bodies of water to get to another place.
And you said a piece of a plant, and we have a plant picture. It's Eurasian milfoil. How much of a problem is the plant invasive species?
Quite a bit, and we're seeing a variety of them in North Dakota. We do have Eurasian water milfoil in a few places in the state, and the bad part about these things is you don't need a whole plant. You get a segment of the plant hanging off of your trailer and it drops in a body of water. You know, a lot of them can re-root just by a plant fragment, so it doesn't take a lot. So, and that's part of the reason we have you know, for the last few years, we've really been stressing people, pull the weeds off your boat trailer. If you're going down the highway with weeds hanging on your trailer, you could certainly see some enforcement action on that.
So the biggest tip for people is to watch what you're carrying in your bait bucket, in anything in your boat that you come out of the water. Make sure you clean it off.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, clean your boat trailer off if there's stuff hanging on it. Once in a while, if you doesn't hurt to, you know, take it in and pressure wash it out. If you are really concerned, you know, a bleach solution, 1 part bleach to 20 parts water will disinfect a lot of this stuff. And you know, it's pretty simple measures that are going to hopefully, we can't probably stop it, but at least slow it down and keep it out of a lot of our bodies of water.
Right. Well, thanks so much for coming on and explaining this. It's something that comes under the radar for a lot of people, I'm sure.
You bet.
All right, thanks.